Hi, I'm Andy Jacobs with Accurex.
And I'm Brett Kroening from Boelter. Andy and I have had a dialogue today about holistic approaches to design of food service venues. We'd like to show you a few of the videos from that today.
Thank you for taking time out of your day today and joining us.
And the design is a great place to start, but sort of seeing it through and having it all function the way it needs to is kind of like the most critical part of it, right? I think it's interesting between what we think about in our homes and our everyday residences versus what we're doing in our sort of production plant operations. We're driven so much on how it works and how it flows, and it should look good too, right? Yeah. Whereas in our homes, I think a lot of times we're fixated on how it looks first, right? Yep. And if you have to take a few more steps to the kitchen or to the refrigerator from the sink, it's not ideal, but not that big of a deal. Yeah. Whereas in a kitchen operation, those steps are dollars, right? And certainly that operation function is dollars and is safety too.
Yeah. That can obviously help to reduce just overall operating costs, right? Too. How else do you look at the overall space and maybe working with the customers, looking at the different products and the different things that you need to have in there?
Oh my gosh, right? There's so much innovation too in our industry. I mean, you'd think that some of these things are sort of been around, and that there's these little nuances that come out that are really the same thing, right? I mean, a warming cabinet. Well, how about a warming cabinet with doors on both sides, right, to where it's passed through? How about placing something in between walls so we can pass that food through and keep, sort of like we talked about, sort of some of those dirty things, grilling and some of the stuff that creates a lot of grease-laden vapor and can be sort of odor, some noxious odors. Keep that away from the customers, but then bring the other pieces of the puzzle out front. So things like that, things like pass-through heated cabinets, display. Obviously, food display is huge. Even when we're in a plated restaurant, right? Even when people are bringing our food to our table, if we can see some of that operation and we can see some of that plating taking place and we can kind of visualize it, I think it's really, really a great sales tool for the restaurant or for that food operation. But additionally, it also offers a little bit of a level of complexity to our jobs as far as trying to make sure that everything looks presentable. Back to what we said about we want it to look good, but we're really fixated on how well it works. Yeah. When we have these open concept kitchens and you can see everything, we need it to look really good, right? As we talk about that, sort of again, the design is all based on those customer preferences mixed with what we can physically do, right? I mean, there's limitations. There's ideas. And then there's reality, but I think we pride ourselves on trying to make those realities real. The key to that, in most cases, in my opinion, is product knowledge and knowing what will work and what won't. And then, of course, relationships, basically where we got the product knowledge, the relationships with people like yourself and others that will help us make something that actually works.
Absolutely.
We can draw it and then create it and then make sure it functions properly, regardless of what kind of venue it is, right? No matter how big it is, no matter how small it is, no matter where it's located. It really kind of comes down to that in most cases, is just listening to that client and making sure that you're hearing them.
Conceptually, I'm a operator here. I'm coming to you. I say I want to make a new kitchen, right? And I want it here, 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 and here. But then you look at it and say, no, that doesn't really make sense. From your overall operation, it's essentially going to cost you over time, whether it's from your time, whether it's from your energy, from just the overall efficiency of the units. It's kind of
definitely, right?
Yeah,
because there's a lot of ideas that seem great in concept, but when you try to put them in practice, they become problematic, right? But that is the key, is trying to find a way to not just say no, right? I mean, it's easy to look at something and say, this isn't going to work very well. I've done a lot of these before, and what you've sketched here isn't going to work. We'll draw you something that will.
Right.
We never want to take that approach. We always want to kind of take the approach of, well, let's try. Let's see what that looks like. And then present it and study it. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time, right? I don't want to mislead anyone in thinking that just because we're spending that extra time that it's like a waste of time, or it draws things way out.
Right, and there's a time and place for everything, right? I mean, I even think about from, the kitchen ventilation side of things, I think there's a time and place for constant volume controls, from just having it being on off, like you can just literally go up, touch a switch, turn the lights on, turn the hood on, and then you can forget about it, right? But then there's also a time and a very good place for, our demand control ventilation systems too, where, you're going to have it ramp up and down and based off of, the sensible heat that it sees. And then, I think that then it also, can shift into, like the maintenance factor of things, right? So, you look at, if we kind of travel from say like an exhaust hood up, right? We look at, prefabricated duct, which is, becoming a more of a norm almost in the kitchen ventilation realm now, because it's number one, pretty easy to install. It's easier to service, but then as we move up towards like the kitchen exhaust fans, right? You look at maybe going towards direct drive fans now, because we want to eliminate some of that maintenance that somebody has, where all of a sudden they're cooking, boom, it's not working anymore. Maybe you have to, tread yourself up from, you were in the middle of cooking, a bunch of steaks for, for a party that came into your restaurant, right?
High grease laden vapor, right?
Now you have to get up there quickly, change a belt, get it back in operation before the heat gets too high underneath your hood, because, of course your appliances are still running, you're still trying to cook, right? And you don't want anything to happen, as far as fire suppression. But, so it's like one of those things where, you kind of almost have a little bit of a trade-off. And like you said, it's just kind of coming back to a discussion, right? With what's important to you, thinking about what can happen in different situations too, right?
Because a lot of that can be displayed on the readout too, right? As far as like, hey, your systems are, from my experience, you have pretty much the gamut of different diagnostics available, right? You can tell me that, hey, the fan's not on.
Right.
Or you can tell me the fan's not on because it's not getting any power.
Yep, you have a failure in XYZ situation, right? It's something just a little bit easier for those operators, but as we said, it's not, it may not be for everyone too, right? Because the amount of different types of places we get into, it's unreal, right?
I think about that all the time. Yeah, it's just how diverse the different markets are that do the same thing, right? I mean, they're all producing food for humans. And there's just so many different venues, different types of food, different types of operators. It's like you said, it's pretty much the rainbow. And so we need to be dynamic, right? We need to be able to deal with all those different groups from a design standpoint, from a procurement standpoint, from a project management standpoint, from manufacturing standpoint and manufacturing support. It's just, the key is finding partners that are willing to go there with you on those sort of, through those challenges, figure out the answers to these things.
And so when you think about, we mentioned there's so many different types of locations, venues, whether it's a person deciding that, they bought a foreclosed house and they're going to convert it into a restaurant, right? To a brew pub, taking an abandoned warehouse and making it into something, or maybe it's a brand new construction and everything's going to just be perfect and run smoothly, right? What are some different things that you think about, or kind of need to convey from more of like a safety factor?
Yeah, right. And then we start talking about solid fuels and different things like this, right? So yeah, absolutely. That's a conversation that's typically something, we're maybe not talking as much to the end user directly about some of those safety things. We're building some of that in. We're having conversations with folks like yourself or the refrigeration contractors or procurement teams. I mean, the cooking equipment is clearly the most dangerous thing in the kitchen, right? I mean, it's hot, it has gas or high voltage electric, whereas most of the other components in the kitchen are sort of more safe, right? Walk-in coolers, dishwashers also have some risks, but certainly not the fire hazard that the hood and cooking equipment below it is. So yeah, exactly. We're thinking about all the different sort of mitigation methods too, where we're trying to, we've got the information on the various cooking products that are required distances away from combustibles and semi-combustibles. And that's something that, both Accurex as well as the manufacturer of the product can help with, as far as putting panels behind the hood.
Right.
Insulated panels behind the hoods, insulating the hoods, insulating the top and sides of the hoods. Because in some instances, we're in a building that's all wood construction, like you mentioned. Between Accurex and Boelter and the engineering teams, be it the architect or other physical builders, we can talk about other ways to sort of create those minimum clearances without having to knock the whole building, gut the entire inside of the building, or replace a bunch of wood joists.
But really, when you look at it, a couple of really big things is, what are the appliances? What are they going to? How are they going to be situated under it? And then what's the site look like? What is the space that we have to work with look like? And
what
is it constructed of?
Yeah.
What kind of space do we have to work with? Because like you said, there's so many of the kind of redundant safety things that we just build into it for everyone, right? Whether it's if the fire system in the hood trips, we're going to make sure that all those appliances shut off, right? Yep. I mean, that's just one of those things that's common practice. It's code. It's something that we all just do. Kind of covering off on so many different things. Is there any other potentially small details that you want to just always look at? Because we're kind of talking. We almost talked a lot of big picture things, right? Like things that you see. You can maybe tangible. You can touch, feel, whatever. But like small details that you're when you're looking at the space, like that can either make it run more smoothly, efficiently from a traffic flow standpoint, or just from the overall looks, feels.
Because we can supply equipment, right? We can supply a hood, we can supply a walk-in cooler freezer, we can supply a really beautiful serving counter and all sorts of other things like this, right? And we can focus on those details in shop drawings and make sure that those look exactly the way we want them to. I mean, make sure we're using suppliers that have good shop drawings that clearly show what we're getting, so that we can really fine-tune all those details in our equipment.
Yeah.
But most cases, the bigger thing that hangs out is some of the quality associated with the design and construction of the building itself. And when I'm talking about that is things that are directly related to us. So the flooring and the cove base below and around our equipment. How that flooring and cove base or ceiling and walls tie into our walk-in cooler and freezer, for example. How that trim looks. Because inevitably we have closure that goes in between our monolithic product, like your hood or the walk-in, and the ceiling. How the ceiling grid looks, how the dishwasher venting goes through the ceiling grid. All these little things, I think, really add to the fine finished product. And those are really only, you can write that stuff down to spec, and you can hand somebody a spec, but it really comes down to communication and making sure that those builders and architects and others know what you're looking for, because then they can build them into their spec and they can provide them to their subcontractors. But without that communication, without that flow and that conversation, it's pretty hard for individuals that maybe haven't built a restaurant interior before, or maybe individuals that have but built a restaurant for a different type of venue. I would say that detail is for me is general, is making sure that all the details that I'm familiar with and like I say, a lot of times it's floor finish, ceiling finish, wall finish, and then the tie-in to those things that are the critical piece that really give the customer a finished product that they're looking for.
So it's just calling upon another one of the pieces of the puzzle, right? So you mentioned the architects, right? And what's your overall look going to be like if and I'm sure it's a lot different if you're talking back of house, front of house, even as something as simple as, what's going to be behind the appliances underneath the hood. You need a non-combustible cleanable surface, right? But that can be one of many things, right? Your standard stainless steel, maybe in a back of house, because nobody really matters what it looks like, right? But when you come out into the front of the house, maybe you want something that looks better architecturally, right? Something that's maybe like a tile or something like that. So,
and a lot of times architects, if you're not having that conversation, are maybe afraid to use a product that is a tile or is this or is that, because they're concerned about, well, does the code say I can use tile? Does the code not say I can use tile? And that's something that we can help with to share what's code applicable and what's not. What's, from our experience, what's able to be cleaned pretty good and what's going to be a real challenge to clean. Back to the layout of the equipment, right? If we've got a front of house, back of house situation, and we have the ability to have two hoods, maybe let's put the really big, ugly grease producers in the back where the stainless is going to be much easier to clean as opposed to having them in front on a white subway tile wall with white grout that's never going to get clean, right? So yeah, lots of detail there that really, I think, makes the project pop, is that relationship between the food service designer, project manager, and the architecture group. And of course the owner. I mean, I can't understate the importance of communication between the owner and the food service design team, and of course the architect.
Both from your standpoint, but then also, your customer's standpoint. I'd imagine that probably one of the biggest things front of mind, front and center, is going to be aftermarket support, right?
Yes,
troubleshooting,
no question.
having, being able to, call somebody and have somebody answer, right?
Yes, having the ability to call people that know and be able to get them on the phone. And I'm thinking of you and Phil and the people that I talk to. But then internally, there's a lot, when you call in or you go on the web, you can find someone that has the answer.
Right.
Is critical. And then furthermore, right, if there's no one that can answer the question without coming to look at it, someone has to be able to come and look at it.
Yeah.
And that's, really, again, where you guys have the ability, Accurex has the ability to, the depth of personnel to take care of a site review or coming out to look at things, whether it be before the hoods are hanging or after the hoods are up or as the air handler is being set or as the fans are being set or maybe before the ductwork's even fabricated. And there's just conflict and challenge with access through the building. It's so critical. I get fixated on the production, the design, the layout, the install, and then okay, now we've set the customer loose, right? Here you guys go. And then, there's obviously a warranty period and we're involved, but we want that client to be able to reach out to you if there's a problem directly and fix the problem quickly in lieu of, potentially reaching out to a third party that then has to reach out to someone else to find an answer.
Right.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's so easy for a customer to find the phone number and then have someone pick up on the other end of the line.
We put our phone number, I think, pretty much everywhere that you could slap it, so that you can look around and you can find it. And then, really 24/7 now, you can get somebody on that line.
That's great. In this day and age, it's not. I think we can all attest that that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
Some cases you're pushing a lot of buttons before you can get someone to talk to, and that may not be someone that is able to actually help.
Certainly try to make it easier for everyone, whether it's up front during install or later on down the road when lo and behold something does happen and we need to figure it out, and trying to make that as easy as it is, that you can get that taken care of and then get back to really what you're meant to be there for, right?
Yes, exactly.
We would love to continue the conversation with you around your specific needs. You can find your local Accurex representative or reach out to us directly at accurex.com or call 1-800-333-1400.